Hi, I'm Arthur, and in all of my time as a person, as a human being on this planet, I'm struck by this sensation whenever I'm out and about. I live in a heavily forested area, but I personally constantly think to myself at the worst of times, this one thing. I could be at a zoo, looking at a bear, and I would think to myself, could I beat that in a fight? And the answer is quite honestly very often no, but it does bring to mind what it would take to even the odds out. Say the bear didn't know I was coming, and I had a sword. Could I still then beat the bear? Maybe. I'd have to hit it pretty hard and pretty fast, so these are the things I have to think about. I contemplate whether or not I could win fights with random animals I see, because I have the brain of a chimpanzee, and, you gotta have a hobby, right? So, with that in mind, I read a lot of fiction, especially if you couldn't tell 40k fiction, so I think we have all at one point or another, when reading it on our little journey through this universe, thought to ourselves, could I beat a space marine in a fight? Could be to the death, could be to first blood, but generally speaking, it is an idea that I think is pretty fun to weigh the options to each possible angle and see how it goes. See, in the lore, there are a decent amount of examples of space marines being put into a position where a basic human can murder them pretty easily. We're gonna get into those in just a brief moment. I just have a quick word from a pretty fun sponsor today. Hey, you guys want to see something cool? Check this out. I have been doing 40k lore content for a while now. So when Starforged approached me to promote one of their products, I jumped at the chance. For those who don't know, Starforged is the licensed producer for the high-end merchandise for all of the Warhammer properties. As you could probably guess, it's all high quality, but what I'm showing you right now is a cut above the rest. If you're a fan of 40k, you've seen these incense-burning thuribles floating around in the lore, and like me, at least once, wanted to own one. And now you can. It comes with aesthetic as all hell skull incense to burn inside the thurible. Using my link in the description, you will be given a pretty decent discount of 8% on the AdMech thurible and incense packages. It's an amazing gift to give to that AdMech friend you have, or as just a fun present for yourself. You get to be that special kind of extra at your next game night and bless your dice with incense and the might of the Omnisaya. So once again, use my link in the description to get 8% off your purchase, and thanks again to Starforged for sponsoring this video. Okay, so one of the ones I like to bring up a lot, and one that usually floors people, is that there was once this planet that was essentially a Carcharodon's way station, where they stored a bunch of ancient chapter relics. These relics were very, very important to the chapter as a whole. It had a piece of void glass that was tied to their Primarch, and a bunch of old relic gear, essentially. As the story goes, there was a corrupt rogue trader hired to steal the void glass from them, which 9 times out of 10 is a fucking death sentence when dealing with the space sharks, but this individual hedged their bets and brought a small mercenary company of Kroot, Drukhari, a few other humans, and a few other mixed Xenos races. And they were also all loaded up with a bunch of illegal and incredibly high-powered weapons. He showed up, slaughtered a bunch of Carcharodon space marines that were stationed there, and ended up getting within sword fight range of a Carcharodon chaplain, who had just returned from essentially what is Space Shark Vacation. It's their own form of Shark Week, I guess. They basically just go out and explore the area around them, which is 99% desert, and go pretty much naked, just for the sport of it. Killing giant bug monsters in the desert does sound kind of shitty to me, but to them it's probably a great time. This chaplain was returning and knew that no matter what he did, he could not beat this human in a fight without dying, as he would be shredded to pieces by the monomolecular edged saber the rogue trader had, as well as getting shot to death by the mercenaries that had come with him and surrounded the individual. It ended with a definitive L for the Space Marines, though this is a situation where the odds are stacked in the favor of the humans so much that it's not even really just a one-on-one human combating an individual space marine situation. So let's narrow it down a bit. In the Spears of the Emperor novel, there is a scene where 2 individuals are forced to fight a traitor space marine. Now, for context, these 2 women involved were actually high-ranking serfs of the rank of Helots to a Mentor Legion space marine. So what what does that mean? Well, they, upon reaching the rank of Helot, need to be trained harder than any other serf or slave could ever be trained, as they serve directly under a single Space Marine. And the Mentor Legion themselves are known for the fact they train guardsmen and other Space Marines on how to be more officious in their duties. So imagine the level of scrutiny they would be under. So aside from that, they were equipped with combat armor, standard flak suits, and the thing that was helping them the most was the inclusion of a very specialized weapon. I have never heard of this weapon outside of this book, and maybe I just need to read more, and searching for this is a pain in the ass because it shares the name with a bunch of other things in the 40k universe, because, I don't know, GW does that from time to time. So you're gonna have to trust me that it's real, or just read the book. But in the book, it is called... Hi, Arthur here. I was editing this video and also doing a little bit more research into the shotgun that I'm talking about. Turns out one of the reasons why I was having so much difficulty finding it online is because I misremembered the name. I got the book up again and I actually started to look through to find what they actually called it in the book because I thought I was misremembering it. Turns out it's called an engager shotgun, not an enforcer. I don't know why I remembered it being called an enforcer shotgun. Maybe because I've been playing like a little bit of Kill Team and there's like the doesn't matter. But yeah, when I say enforcer, I really mean engager. I'm just a fucking idiot. An enforcer. It is a solid adamantine slug firing shotgun style weapon. But the title they give it in the book is that it is called a Space Marine killer. The adamantine slugs are meant specifically to pierce the ceramite plating of a Space Marine's armor and hit them on the inside. They were drilled on how to use them in case of a traitor Space Marine attack, and fuck me did they try. But it really goes to show you the level of difference between a human being and a Space Marine when these two heavily augmented humans with weapons designed to kill Space Marines who have trained against a Space Marine for quite a few many years had such a fucking wretched time fighting one singular traitor Space Marine with a knife. There were broken bones, a shattered skull, lopped off limbs, a terminus eye that was fired but missed, but eventually, struggling for their lives, they ended up shooting the Space Marine and barely killed him. Like, he got a few more steps in before he fell to the ground. The two Helots were so battered and broken. The main character of the story being one of these two characters, she was stated to have a skull that was described by medical officials as broken as fuck. She started hallucinating, and the next couple chapters had her fading in and out of consciousness because the Space Marine in question grabbed her head and bashed it against a fucking wall. Quite literally, the majority of what happened in this fight was too one-sided, even with the gear that was meant to kill Space Marine. Essentially, they just got lucky. I hope you can piece together what I'm putting down here, but that was 2-on-1, and that hardly is fair. So, with just a plain human that has received quite an extensive amount of augmentation in a one-on-one, mostly unarmed brawl, could a Space Marine be beat? Well, best example of a heavily augmented human in peak condition fighting a Space Marine in fair circumstances would be in a small audio drama I'd highly recommend called The Assassination of Gabriel Seth. The story features the legendary Gabriel Seth, chapter master of the Flesh Terrors, having an assassination attempt made on him by one of his chaplains who believes that the Flesh Terrors should go back to their more primordial berserking roots and then just burn out, instead of being told not to kill civilians, because that's pussy shit in their eyes. So, what he did was during a ceremonial visit to a Flesh Terror Marine's tomb, he locked Gabriel Seth into said tomb with an Eversor assassin, which, if you don't know, is an incredibly augmented human being and hopped up on every combat stim you could imagine. That being said, they are still technically human. Gabriel, realizing the matchup was not exactly in his favor, had to think for the first time in his life in a combat scenario. He knew that if he decided to lose control and snap then and there, he would die. He would kill the Eversor, but in his berserker fury, he would kill it too quickly, and it would explode and kill him. See, Eversors have a bio-meltdown when they die, so they explode into bony shrapnel. So while fighting off this elite assassin in hand-to-hand combat, he tried his best to not lose his mind to a berserking rage he held deep within, especially considering someone that was one of his officers just betrayed him, and instead broke all of the Eversor's limbs before throwing him against a back wall, then killing it and having it explode to make a hole in the wall. So, in a fairish fight against a hyper-augmented serial killer chainsaw with legs, still couldn't really kill Gabriel. These are all examples as to how many human or human-adjacent individuals and groups have tried to kill a space marine through conventional means. Could a Psyker kill a space marine even if they were human? Are you insane? Yes! There are so many stories I've read about just one guy who just got random wizard powers, likely from Zeech, and just fuck-slammed a space marine against a wall, then instead of killing them, they just monologue and then kill the space marine. Good example is from a short story called the Phalangite Ascendancy. I'd give it a read. It's in this book here. It's an anthology based off of various new Primera stories. Unfortunately, the guy monologued a bit too long, and the space marine got free with a tricky little haha, I pulled the pin out of the grenade when you weren't looking trick, but the Psyker could have totally just murdered the shit out of him. Psykers in terms of combat prowess are a little overpowered if they are one of the higher categories of Psyker. But Jedi mind powers aside, I'm not going to allow them, because if I were to even the playing field and add a Space Marine librarian, then it's not even a fight. It's more just like coughing baby versus hydrogen bomb. What can we take away from this lesson? What are the best odds for you to beat a Space Marine? Well, for one, if they are wearing full armor, your chances drastically decrease unless you have something that can pierce it. Now, if you do, you still need to understand that even in multiple metric tons of ceramite and anger, you still need proper training to fight them. They move uncomfortably fast. So, best case scenario, you found a Space Marine to murder during bath time if you don't have armor-penetrating rounds, and worst case, you do have armor-penetrating rounds and they are fully armored. You also have to be far enough away that they can't just rip the gun out of your hands and murder you. See, is your reaction time quick enough to hit them when they're up close? Probably not. In some novels I've read, it's pretty frequently stated that for non-Astartes, them beginning to pull the trigger is enough time for the Space Marine to react to a shot being sent their way from a gun. They just calculate where the bullet is going depending on where the fucking tube is pointed at. Now, if the Space Marine has a weapon, your chances are going down drastically. Okay, so, final tally. Yeah, it's perfectly possible for you to kill a fully armored Space Marine if you have specialized armor-piercing ammunition or a melt-a-gun. You have a decent range on them, because fuck me, if they're up close, you're not going to get a chance to shoot them. And you get a bit of a drop on them, so they don't have time to formulate a plan to rip your arms and legs off and beat you to death with them. Armor-piercing gun, heavy armor on yourself, a well-formed plan, years of combat training against Space Marines, special augmentations, and probably a friend hiding very far away to kind of scoop up your pulpy remains for a burial later, just in case things fail, which they likely will. If you don't have all that, then like, yeah, I guess don't fight a Space Marine. It's probably not a good idea. But what do I know? Maybe I can go fight those bears in hand-to-hand combat and win. I'll never know until I try, right? What do you all think? Think it's possible? Have other references of a common human in completely balanced circumstances killing a Space Marine in one-on-one combat? Let me know, because I'm genuinely enthralled by the concept. Comment, like, and subscribe to support the channel, and thanks to my channel members for supporting me further. And if you want to support me as well as gain access to additional content, then become a channel member today. Thanks again for watching, and until next time.